Hello, in this video we'll be discussing about the anatomy of the shoulder. So it's a region that connects the upper limb to the trunk and is one of the most mobile yet least stable areas of the human body. It's made up of three bones, which is your clavicle, scapula and the proximal humerus, which together forms the pectoral or the shoulder girdle. This girdle acts as a dynamic base that allows the upper limb its wide range of motion. Now let's discuss the clavicle bone first, which is often called the collarbone. It is the only bony connection between the trunk and the upper limb. It has a gentle S-shaped curve, the medial half convex forward and the lateral half concave forward, giving it both flexibility and strength. The medial or the sternal end is thick and articulates with the manubrium of the sternum and the first costal cartilage, while the lateral or the acromial end is flat and articulates with the acromion of the scapula. The inferior surface of the clavicle bears the conoid tubercle and trapezoid line for attachment of coracoclavicular ligament, which stabilizes the scapula to the clavicle. Functionally, the clavicle serves as a strut that holds the upper limb away from the thorax, permitting freedom of movement. Because of its slender midsection and the opposing muscle pulls, it is also one of the most commonly fractured bones, particularly in its middle third. Posterior to it lies the scapula, which is a flat, triangular bone resting on the posterior chest wall between the second and the seventh ribs. It has three angles, which is inferior, lateral, and superior, three borders, which is your superior, medial, and lateral border, two surfaces, and three important processes, the spine, acromion, and coracoid process. The posterior surface of the scapula is divided by the prominent spine of scapula into the smaller supraspinous fossa and the larger infraspinous fossa, which house the supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscle respectively. The spine continues laterally as the acromion, forming the summit of the shoulder, which articulates with the clavicle at the acromioclavicular joint. Now, the costal surface of the scapula is concave, which forms the subscapular fossa. The lateral angle bears the glenoid cavity. Above and below this cavity are two small projections, the supraglenoid tubercle and the infraglenoid tubercle. The supraglenoid tubercle is the origin of the long head of biceps brachii, while the infraglenoid tubercle is the origin of the long head of triceps brachii. From the superior border arises the coracoid process, a hook-like projection that provides attachment to several muscles, including a pectoralis minor, the short head of biceps, and coracobrachialis. And finally, the humerus, the long bone of the arm, completes the bony framework. Its proximal end bears a smooth hemispherical head that articulates with the glenoid cavity of the scapula. Just below the head is the anatomical neck, and lateral to this are the greater and the lesser tubercles. So the greater tubercle, which lies laterally, has three facets for supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor muscle respectively, and the lesser tubercle, which lies anteriorly, bears a facet for subscapularis. Between them lies the intertubercular sulcus or the bicipital groove, which lodges the tendon of the long head of biceps brachii. The lips of this groove serve as insertion sites for the pectoralis major, which is the lateral lip, the latissimus dorsi at the floor, and teres major muscle at the medial lip. The surgical neck just distal to these structures is a common site of fracture and is clinically significant because the axillary nerve and posterior circumflex humeral artery pass immediately posterior to it and may be injured. So these bones articulate at three joints that form the shoulder complex. Let's first discuss the acromioclavicular joint, which is located between the acromion of the scapula and the lateral end of the clavicle, which is a plain synovial joint reinforced by the coracoclavicular ligament, which itself consists of the conoid and trapezoid parts and the acromioclavicular ligament. This joint transmits forces from the upper limb to the axial skeleton, and a fall on the shoulder may disrupt these ligaments, leading to an acromioclavicular dislocation, classically presenting as a piano key deformity. Next, the sternoclavicular joint lies between the sternal end of the clavicle and the manubrium with the first costal cartilage. It is a synovial saddle type of joint with a fibrocartilaginous articular disc dividing it into two cavities. This joint allows elevation, depression, protraction, retraction, and limited rotation of the clavicle, giving the shoulder its foundational movement. Lastly, the main articulation, which is the glenohumeral joint, is a synovial ball and socket joint between the head of the humerus and the glenoid cavity of the scapula. It is the most mobile joint in the body, allowing flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, medial and lateral rotation, as well as circumduction. But this mobility comes at the expense of stability. The shallow glenoid cavity is deepened by a fibrocartilaginous rim called the glenoid labrum. The joint capsule is thin and loose, particularly inferiorly, to accommodate abduction. Now, this is reinforced by several ligaments: the inferior glenohumeral ligament, middle glenohumeral ligament, and the superior glenohumeral ligaments. On the superior aspect lies the coracohumeral ligament, and the transverse humeral ligament bridges the bicipital groove, holding the biceps tendon in place. Above the joint lies a protective arc formed by the coracoid process, acromion, and the coracoacromial ligament, preventing upward dislocation of humeral head. Finally, coming to the muscles of the shoulder, which consists of two layers, which is a superficial layer and a deep layer. So the superficial layer consists of trapezius as well as deltoid muscle. Now the trapezius consists of a descending part and an ascending part. So the descending part takes origin from the occipital bone, nuchal ligament, and the spinous processes of the cervical vertebrae, whereas the ascending part takes origin from the spinous processes of the cervical as well as the thoracic vertebrae. We can see that the descending part inserts into the lateral clavicle, ascending part inserts into the acromion and spine of the scapula. So the origin of trapezius is the occipital bone, nuchal ligament, spinous processes of C7 to T12, and it inserts in the lateral clavicle, acromion, and spine of scapula. It is supplied by the spinal accessory nerve as well as C3 and C4, which provide sensory innervation to this muscle. It acts to elevate, retract, and rotate the scapula upwards. Next, coming on to the deltoid muscle, which consists of various heads. It has the clavicular head, the acromial head, and the spinal head. It takes origin from the lateral third of the clavicle, acromion, and spine of the scapula and inserts onto the deltoid tuberosity of humerus, supplied by the axillary nerves, and helps in the abduction, mainly from 15 to 90 degrees, flexion and extension due to the various heads of this muscle. Finally, coming on to the deeper muscles, which are your rotator cuff muscles. They play a vital role in dynamic stabilization, and they are your supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis, which is remembered by the mnemonic SITS. So the supraspinatus muscle takes origin from supraspinous fossa and inserts onto the superior facet of greater tubercle, supplied by suprascapular nerve, and initiates abduction, which is your 0 to 15 degrees. The infraspinatus muscle takes origin from infraspinous fossa, inserts onto the middle facet of greater tubercle, supplied by suprascapular nerve, and assists with lateral rotation of arm. Teres minor originates from lateral border of scapula and inserts onto the inferior facet of greater tubercle with the nerve supply of axillary nerve, helping in lateral rotation and stabilization of the shoulder. Finally, subscapularis, which is the muscle taking origin from subscapular fossa and the only muscle to insert onto the lesser tubercle. Now, this is supplied by upper and lower subscapular nerves, and it helps in medial rotation as well as adduction of the arm. There are some other supporting muscles such as the teres major and latissimus dorsi. Teres major originates from the inferior angle of scapula, inserts onto the medial lip of bicipital groove with a nerve supply of lower subscapular nerve, and assists with adduction and medial rotation of the arm. So it helps subscapularis in medial rotation. Latissimus dorsi, which originates from spinous processes of T7 to L5 vertebrae, thoracolumbar fascia as well as the iliac crest, and inserts onto the floor of the bicipital groove, which we've already discussed, with a nerve supply of thoracodorsal nerve, and assists with adduction, extension, and internal rotation of the arm. So we understand that amongst the rotator cuff muscles, supraspinatus helps with abduction, infraspinatus and teres minor with lateral rotation, subscapularis and other muscles such as teres major, latissimus dorsi helping with internal rotation of the arm. So in summary, the shoulder is an intricate structure composed of 3 bones, 3 joints, a network of ligaments, and multiple muscles that work together to balance strength, flexibility, and precision. I hope this video helped you understand the shoulder a little better. If you did like this video, please hit the like button, and please do comment as to what videos you'd like me to cover next. Thank you so much for watching.